The human person and the society is very much grounded on communication. God's nature is communication, and we are a fruit of His divine plan, and we are called to communicate and share all that is true, good, and beautiful. When we twist the truth and yield to our own pride and selfishness, we distort our communication, and the authenticity and objectivity of our communication is lost. This can be seen from the earliest times in the biblical stories of Cain and Abel and the Tower of Babel, Genesis chapter 4 verses 4 to 16, chapter 11 verses 1 to 9. The alteration and the falsification of truth happens both at the individual and collective level. When we are faithful to God's plan, communication becomes an effective expression of our responsible search for truth and our pursuit of goodness. Pope Francis, in his message for the 52nd World Communications Day this year, calls for a shared commitment to stemming of the spread of fake news, to rediscover earnestly the dignity of journalism and the personal responsibility of journalists to communicate the truth. In today's fast-changing world of communications and digital systems, we are witnessing the spread of what has come to be known as fake news, which by its very term declares that it is the opposite of truth and incorrect news. What is fake news? False information based on non-existent or distorted data is diffused to deceive and manipulate the reader. Spreading fake news can serve to advance specific goals, influence political decisions, and serve economic interests. What is interesting to note in fake news is that because of its effectiveness, it has the ability to mimic real news, and it seems plausible. Secondly, this false but believable news is very captivating and attractive, that it captures the attention by appealing to stereotypes and common social prejudices and exploiting their instantaneous emotions like anxiety, contempt, anger, and frustration. Why is fake news all-pervasive? The manipulative use of the social networks and the way they function, and the high level of interaction by people in homogeneous digital environments makes the eliminating and unmasking of fake news difficult. In fact, untrue stories spread so quickly that even authoritative denials fail to contain the damage. It runs the risk of making people unwilling accomplices in spreading biased and baseless ideas. Disinformation thrives because of the absence of healthy confrontation with other sources of information that can effectively challenge prejudices and generate constructive dialogue. The tragedy of disinformation is that it discredits others, presenting them as enemies to the point of demonizing them and inciting conflict. We need to discern and unmask what could be called the snake tactics used by those who disguise themselves in order to strike at any time and place. The same strategy was employed by the crafty serpent in the book of Genesis, who, at the dawn of humanity, created the first fake news, which began the tragic history of human sin, beginning with the first fratricide, and thus leading to countless other evils committed against God, neighbor, society, and creation. The strategy of this skilled father of lies is precisely mimicry, that sly and dangerous form of seduction that worms its way into the heart with false and alluring arguments. On account of the first sin, the tempter approaches the woman by pretending to be her friend, as if he was concerned only for her welfare, and deceives her. This apparently harmless disinformation, though seemingly a slight distortion of the truth, had dire consequences and led to dangerous effects. The economic and manipulative aims that feed disinformation are rooted in a thirst for power, a desire to possess and enjoy, which ultimately makes us victims of something much more tragic: the deceptive power of evil that moves from one lie to another and robs us of our interior freedom. That is why education for truth means teaching people how to discern, evaluate, and understand our deepest desires and inclinations, so that we may not lose sight of what is good and yield to every temptation. So how do we defend ourselves? The most radical antidote to the virus of falsehood is purification by the truth. The truth will set you free. John chapter 8, verse 32. In Christianity, truth is not just a conceptual reality that regards how we judge things, defining them as true or false. The truth is not just bringing to light things that are concealed, revealing reality, which means not hidden, so that it might lead us to believe. Truth involves our whole life. In the Bible, it carries with it the sense of support, solidity, and trust, as something you can lean on so as not to fall. In this relational sense, the only truly reliable and trustworthy one, the one on whom we can count, is the living God, as Jesus affirms, "I am the truth." We discover and rediscover the truth when we experience it within ourselves in the loyalty and trustworthiness of the one who loves us. This alone can liberate us, as Jesus has affirmed, "The truth will set you free." To discern the truth, we need to discern everything that encourages communion and promotes goodness, from whatever instead tends to isolate, divide, and oppose. We can recognize the truth of statements from their fruits, whether they provoke quarrels, provoke division, encourage resignation, or on the other hand, they promote informed and mature reflection, leading to constructive dialogue and fruitful results. True news is peace, and it has to be centered on the people. The best antidotes to falsehoods are not strategies, but people. People who are not greedy, but are ready to listen. People who make the effort to engage in sincere dialogue so that the truth can emerge. People who are attracted by goodness and take responsibility for how they use language. Journalists must remember that at the heart of information is not the speed with which it is reported or the impact it has on the audience, but the person. Information means formation. It means being in touch with people's lives. That is why ensuring the accuracy of sources and protecting communication are real means of promoting goodness, generating trust, and opening the way to communion and peace. We are not talking of a sugar-coated journalism, but of a journalism that is truthful and opposed to falsehoods, rhetorical slogans, and sensational headlines. A journalism created by people, for people, one that is at the service of all, especially those, and they are the majority in our world, who have no voice. A journalism less concentrated on breaking news, but more on exploring the underlying causes of conflicts in order to promote deeper understanding and contribute to their resolution by setting in place virtuous processes. A journalism committed to pointing out alternative solutions than to the escalation of uproar and verbal violence. Keeping this great goal in our mind and heart, and drawing inspiration from the Franciscan prayer, let us implore the truth in person. Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Lord, help us to recognize the evil latent in a communication that does not build communion. Help us to remove the venom from our judgments. Help us to speak about others as our brothers and sisters. You are faithful and trustworthy. May our words be seeds of goodness for the world. Where there is shouting, let us practice listening. Where there is confusion, let us inspire harmony. Where there is ambiguity, let us bring clarity. Where there is exclusion, let us offer solidarity. Where there is sensationalism, let us use sobriety. Where there is superficiality, let us raise real questions. Where there is prejudice, let us awaken trust. Where there is hostility, let us bring respect. And where there is falsehood, let us bring truth.